It was just another ordinary Saturday in the Adams household. 10-year-old Ethan was in his room, absorbed in his favorite comic book. His younger sister, Emily, was nearby, playing with her dolls and humming a tune. The sun streamed through the windows, casting a warm, golden light across the kitchen where their mom was preparing lunch. Ethan's dad was out in the yard, working on the car, and everything seemed calm, perfectly normal. Ethan loved days like these. His family was his world. He had always been close to Emily. She was only 6, but the two of them had a special bond. He liked to think of himself as her protector, even though she was tough in her own way. The two of them had their usual routines. Ethan would help her with her schoolwork, and Emily would help him with chores. Theirs was a world of laughter, shared secrets, and innocent fun. Their mom, always smiling, would call them to dinner when the smell of food filled the house. It was a comforting, rhythmic cycle. Little did they know, the comfort they felt that day would soon be shattered. Everything changed in an instant. As Ethan flipped through his comic book, he suddenly noticed something. At first, it was just a faint smell, something odd, a burnt odor. He looked up, confused. It didn't make sense. He sniffed the air again. Smoke. A small trail of gray smoke was curling under his door, creeping into his room like a slow-moving shadow. Panic hit him like a punch to the stomach. His heart skipped a beat. Ethan rushed out of his room and into the hallway. That's when he saw it, the kitchen, filled with smoke. The smell of burning wood and plastic was now unmistakable. He could hear crackling like something was on fire. The heat was starting to intensify, and the walls were warm to the touch. His thoughts raced, but there was no time to waste. Ethan's first instinct was to check on Emily. He needed to make sure she was okay. His mind was spinning. Where's Mom? Dad? He couldn't think about that now. All that mattered was getting Emily out of there. The house was starting to feel like a furnace. The air was thick, and the smoke made it hard to breathe. Ethan stumbled into Emily's room, his eyes stinging, his lungs burning. There was no time to lose. He couldn't see clearly. Every breath felt like a fire was scorching his lungs. He pushed through the fear and forced himself to focus. Emily, he called in his head. He found her sitting on the floor, her face pale, tears running down her cheeks. She had no idea what was happening. She was frozen in place, her eyes wide with fear. Emily, we have to go, right now. Ethan shouted, his voice hoarse, barely audible over the roar of the fire growing closer. She looked up at him, confused and scared. Ethan, I'm scared, she whispered, unable to move. Listen to me, he said, his voice firm. We have to get out of here. We don't have much time. Ethan grabbed her hand and pulled her to her feet. The floor was hot beneath their feet as they made their way toward the window. The smoke was thick now, swirling around them like a living thing. Every step felt heavier. Ethan's mind was racing. He had to think quickly. He remembered what he had seen in safety drills at school. Stay low to the ground to avoid the smoke. He bent down pulling Emily with him, and crawled toward the window. The flames were already licking at the doorframe. Time was running out. Ethan didn't hesitate. He opened the window, just enough to see the yard below. The ground was only a few feet away, but it felt like a lifetime. "Emily, I'm going to get you out first," Ethan said, his voice steady, but his heart pounding. "Don't leave me, Ethan," she cried. "I'm not leaving you, I promise." With all his strength, Ethan lifted Emily and pushed her through the window. She screamed in fear as she fell, but Ethan held his breath, praying she would land safely. He could barely see. The smoke was so thick, but he heard her hit the ground with a soft thud. He didn't wait to see if she was okay. He was already climbing out after her, feeling the heat at his back, the house about to collapse any second. Ethan dropped to the ground beside her, both of them gasping for air. The flames were now visible through the window, raging with furious intensity. They ran toward the neighbor's house, their feet stumbling over the grass as the heat from the fire pressed in on them from behind. The fire department arrived just in time to put out the flames, but the house was a total loss. Ethan's family stood outside, watching their home burn, the smoke rising into the sky like a dark memory. Ethan held Emily's hand tightly, feeling both relief and a heavy weight in his chest. They were safe, but it hadn't been easy. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving him shaken and exhausted. He kept replaying the moments in his head, throwing Emily out of the window, leaping after her, feeling the heat close in. He couldn't shake the image of the fire consuming their home. Days later, the community came together to support Ethan and his family. He was hailed as a hero, but Ethan never saw himself that way. He wasn't a hero. He had just done what needed to be done. The attention felt strange. His family was safe. That was all that mattered. But even with all the praise, Ethan felt a deep, quiet shift within himself. He had faced something terrifying, and he had acted with courage, even when every instinct told him to run. Sitting with his parents later that night, Ethan realized something. He wasn't just a scared 10-year-old anymore. He had faced the flames, and he had saved his family. It didn't matter how old you were, courage wasn't about age. It was about doing what was right when it mattered the most. Ethan had always thought of himself as just a kid, someone who needed protection. But in that moment, when his family's lives were on the line, he had become something else, a protector, a hero in his own way. And as he drifted off to sleep that night, with Emily's small hand in his, Ethan knew one thing for sure. No matter what life threw his way, he had the strength to face it, just like any hero would.